ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, Badbaby, and tonight we are honored to have with us Stephen D. Kelley, and he has a bassel of information for us. We're going to be talking about weather warfare, what's going on underground our planet, a whole bunch of stuff. You name it, this guy knows just about everything, you guys. Welcome to the show, Stephen. How are you this evening?
Hi, I'm doing great.
Oh, it's an honor to have you with us again. We spoke to Stephen the other day. Steve Olson and I interviewed him, and oh my God, this guy knows everything, you guys. So what we're going to do is the first hour, we're going to talk a little bit with Stephen. The second hour, if anybody wants to ask him a question, we'll let you call in and maybe shoot a question or two out to him. But before we get started, Stephen, why don't, for those that are in the window that don't know much about you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I'm going to make it brief, so I'm sure I'll be leaving a ton of stuff out, and people will pick it apart afterwards and say, oh, he didn't say this or that. Okay, I'm the most famous for being a ex-CIA NSA contractor, although I was all kinds of other things also, but that's what gets lots of oohs and ahs out of people. And the thing that I did that's the most important thing so far is probably releasing the information about the big giant bunker underneath the Getty Museum in Los Angeles and the satanic rituals and all the nonsense and pedophilia and everything else that goes on down there. And I've been kind of battling with these guys now for some time, and yet I've been about 5 years since I've gone public. Of course, it's been well over 20 years that I've been involved with these people. But anyway, so everything I've done runs the gamut of cloak and dagger to UFOs and high-tech, alien technology and all kinds of, and then psychic stuff too. I'm a Reiki master and a psychic and a remote viewer and a healer, and this all kind of works together. Oh yeah, and I also made famous before any of this happened. I was famous for making world famous for making the world's most accurate laser gun sight. That was the first thing that I was world famous for, and I still am. My product that I used to make when I used to do that is probably still out there, but anyway, at one time I did a lot of work with foreign militaries and special groups, and I was very much into fighting terrorism long before 9/11, and it became fashionable. And of course, after 9/11, I had the opportunity to make about $500 million selling lasers to the Army. And I walked away from it because I didn't want to be. I knew how much blood I would have on my hands if I did that. And every soldier would have had one of my lasers, and that's when I kind of left the business, and I'm kind of doing this now. And I live in poverty, and my kids don't talk to me and all that, but I'm trying to save the world. That's the only thing that matters. Okay.
Oh, well, I'm on that page. My kids don't talk to me either.
Yeah, well, it's probably
they think you're wacko or something.
It's okay. It's probably for the better, Anyway.
That's the way I look at it, Stephen, because of the harassment that I go through. I just rather not bring this into their life,
Uh-huh.
We have to stand up for the truth and just not worry about all that falls to the wayside.
Yeah, we'll give up our lives for everybody else.
Going on underground.
Let's have a good time. We'll take one for the team.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So let's talk. Pappy Pork says my kids don't talk to me either. We should have a My Kids Don't Talk to Me club.
Yeah, well.
Let's talk a little bit about the underground bunker that you mentioned in L.A. What's going on down there?
Well, it's, when people think of bunkers, they think it's just sort of something like a bomb shelter and just a place to live separate from radiation and all this and what have you. And that's all true, sure. If you're a mile down underground, it's very difficult to get at you, and it's very high security, and you can do anything you want that nobody's going to see. And obviously, what it's really going on is like, for instance, they will try to tell us that it's all for continuity of government, and they've got these things all over the place, like in Washington, what have you, for the Congress and what have you. It's got their own special bunkers. But the reality is that these things are really for the elite and don't really have much to do with the government. The government are almost like the poor cousins to the elite. They'll bring them in as a second thought, but they're really for people like the Queen and the billionaires and the people who put the money into making these things. And about half the gross national product of the United States has been going into building these things for the last 50 years at least. So that's a huge amount of money. Before I even knew anything about the bunkers, I knew about the money trail, the paper trail, because I was aware of the goings-ons with the CIA and what have you, and the various different contractors, the big giant corporations that were doing the black budget covert stuff. So, like, for instance, at Area 51, there's certain vendors there or companies that are major contractors, like EG&G, Raytheon, companies like that. EG&G is one of the biggest ones. And one of the things that really got me was when I realized that the entire asset forfeiture program in the United States, that's where they take all your money if you don't pay your taxes, or you're running drugs, or you don't pay your shipping duties on a boatload of something or other, and they confiscate it. Anyway, that's how one of the ways they make a lot of money. The black budget, a lot of the money from the black budget comes from stuff that is just being outright stolen from Americans and foreigners. I mean, if you could have a freighter full of goods, and if the paperwork isn't correct, they'll confiscate the entire goods on the freighter and sell it. I've seen it happen, and it's crazy. Loads of Q-tip swabs, and you'll see that stuff getting auctioned off. But anyway, so that's one of the things they do. Obviously, they're making a lot of money off of drugs. I mean, if you go to like Afghanistan and the heroin and the opium that's coming out of Afghanistan, obviously that's entirely CIA and mass. And but when you think about it, this stuff hasn't just been. I mean, it's been going on for hundreds of years. The Crown is certainly involved in all of this. We actually work for the Crown. People need to understand that. But the Crown has been selling opium in China and everywhere else, and doing this for years and years. This is how they make their money. And most of the American government, everything we do, the State Department. If you look at the politics, Benghazi is a perfect example. Anytime there's a C-130 going in one direction, it's going to be carrying guns or drugs. It's going to be carrying guns one way and drugs the other way. That's how they do it. Tosh Plumley, a friend of mine's another CIA guy who actually flew these planes. He's come out. He's actually flew planes into Mena, Arkansas, and delivered cocaine to Bill Clinton personally. We're out there. And we're talking about this stuff. So anyway, what more do you want to know before I go off on all these tangents?
Are you familiar with Rodney Stitch?
Say what now?
Are you familiar with Rodney Stitch?
Stitch? No, it doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, Rodney Stitch is a retired FAA federal investigator for the airlines, and he has 14 books that he had put out, and he owned a whole string of truck stops and golf courses, and because he was exposing the drug trafficking going on, the inside of our soldiers' bodies and that, they came to his house and shackled him and threw him in prison at 76 years old, and they broke him financially. So I know exactly what you're talking about, stealing things from the American people.
The thing, though, now Rodney, you say he was ex-military, right?
Well, he was in the military.
He worked for the government at one time.
And then he flew planes, and then he was a federal investigator.
Well, the reason why I'm saying that is because any time you become one of them, they own you, and they can do that. It's like when you become a soldier, you lose all your rights, and you have no constitutional rights or anything after that. They own you. So that's one of the problems with working for them, And I was a contractor. There was the only time that it would have been a problem is when I got involved with the Getty people, and this is way beyond CIA, NSA, and all that. And then they wanted a rank. They said, "All right, you're going to be a captain. You're going to be an Air Force captain." Just like that. And you think, "Oh, whoop-de-doo, it comes with $70,000 a year check or something." But they own your ass after they do that completely.
Yeah.
They can throw you in Leavenworth for any time they want. So obviously that's not a good deal.
In view of the fact that you were working with the CIA, right? Am I misunderstanding, or you did work with the CIA at one point?
Well, yeah,
correct?
but when you work with the CIA, you work with CIA people. It's like, in other words, it's like when you first start dealing with the CIA, they're usually spooks. Guys that are spooks. Who knows what they are? They're not even Americans half the time. Okay, the first CIA guy I ever dealt with was Lebanese. Okay, if that tells you anything. The next big CIA guy that came along was a wannabe CIA. It was Don Nixon. Okay, Don Nixon's nephew. Okay, he wasn't even real CIA. He was like a hanger-oner guy that was kind of like new CIA people thought it was all hip and sexy. This is the thing is like, I remember I grew up with James Bond, okay? I thought all this stuff was sexy, right? It's kludge, it's CIA, it's sexy. Well, when Nixon came along, he hooked us up, my brother and I, to what we thought was a big CIA contract. It was a $2.4 million contract, and I thought it was CIA, and I took it over. I took over the whole contract. And it was a 12-month contract to produce 40,000 lasers for them for such and such a price. This was back when no one else in the world was even able to do this stuff that I was doing. I was the only one in the United States who was even doing it.
Talking about, Stephen,
I was making solid-state lasers for the CIA before the China or Japan or anybody was doing it. Okay, before the cat toys and all that, I was making them for these guys. Anyway, the thing is, though, is that they weren't CIA. It was actually NSA. Okay, I didn't know this. I thought they were CIA. I represented myself as CIA. They represented themselves as CIA. When I represented them in public, I wore I wore pinstripes, and I would go to corporations and I would negotiate, materials and vendors, and I would say to them that the customer was the CIA. And of course everyone's all, ooh, it's a big deal. They're like, they're all intimidated. And then of course the place that people I was dealing with was in Costa Mesa. It was just a little commercial building in Costa Mesa, but you walk in there and there, it looks like a regular office, except the guy serving you coffee is wearing a gun or something like this. And you have you bring a bunch of people from like Toshiba and Sony and NEC and Hitachi and Phillips and companies like this into a meeting, and you serve them coffee. With the guys who are serving them coffee are wearing military gear and guns, and it kind of trips people out. And this is what I was dealing with. But in the process of dealing with these people is when I realized just how wicked they were. And that's when I woke up and realized that this country that I thought was one nation under God and all that sort of thing wasn't quite so nice. And we weren't necessarily the good guys. And that blew me away, and that blew my buzz, and that caused me to freak out and have to reevaluate everything and get scared for my life and everything else. And this is where this all started. So it was back with the NSA when I realized how horrible and wicked they were and how they were killing innocent people, and not just killing innocent people, but killing innocent animals and pets of these innocent people, which freaks me out as an animal lover. I mean, you want to kill somebody, okay, but you're going to kill their dog and their cat too? That really bothers me.
Yeah, I had 2 animals killed myself.
Well, that's when, it's like you're watching a movie and it's all good until the dog dies, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what it was with me. It was all good.
When they killed my dog, they tried to use it against me because I wanted a police report that my dog had been poisoned and murdered. And, of course, I'm going to cry. That's my baby. And they tried to act like I was mentally unstable because I cried that my dog died.
Yeah, all right, well, we don't need to go into it. We can make a whole show about that. But
yeah. Even when they do these acts upon us, we have to be very careful how we handle the situation because they use the powers that be against you.
Well, let me just tell you how this developed from that point because that's kind of significant, all right?
Okay.
All right, it's just that when the day, everybody has their wake-up moment. Now, that was my wake-up moment sitting there in that office across from the desk of this NSA guy listening to him tell stories about killing people and their animals. And what I realized right then was this ratio of good versus evil. I knew right away there's no such thing as black and white. Everything was mixed up. So it became a spiritual thing. It wasn't just a political thing. It was also religious and everything else because it's all combined. But bottom line, I realized real quick that these people were trying to screw me over. They were trying to ship me off to Area 51. Ultimately, this is what it was all about. Was they were trying to ship me off to Area 51. They wanted to put me on a base where I couldn't just come and go as I wanted. And obviously this was not going to work out. I had a wife and kids, and they were my protection. That was my excuse for not doing any of this stuff. For years and years, I used that as my insulation from all that. I can't do that. I got kids. I can't go to China. I'm not going to leave my that kind of thing. But anyway, the bottom line is when I knew they were going to screw me over, they weren't going to give me the $1 million, $2 million, $2.4 million. I only got so much. I took what I had of inventory, which was like $150,000 worth of inventory, and I bailed. And there was nothing they could do about it, and they tried to come after me, and I got really paranoid, and I thought that was the first time I thought for sure that they were going to kill me, okay? And I went out and got hooked up with body armor and everything else. And I'm a gun person, so, this is not a scary, super scary thing, but it was real. And that's about that time, a couple things happened. One, they found they couldn't touch me, and they ended up getting run out of town, which is a reoccurring thing. That's that whole Can't Be Killed Club thing going on. And then I got hooked up to Billy Meyer. As soon as I got out of bed with the NSA, I immediately got hooked up. The people that were dealing with Billy Meyer way back when, in those days, that's the guy that was dealing with all the aliens and stuff, come to me because of my technical experience, CIA connections, and all this other crap. And from there, I was going through this massive wake-up, then all of a sudden I get exposed to grays and reptoids and underground bunkers and flying saucers and all this crap, and it took me years to absorb all that crap. And that's another thing and this is a big lesson for people that are listening, is that you got to become an observer. And don't think you know anything. Don't think that you're already educated, you know anything, because you don't know anything. And the very second that you actually think that you know everything is when you got to start over. And I've had to do that at least 2 or 3 times in my life where I had to start over. And sometimes it takes you a whole year to get caught up. And the first time I had to start over was when I got my mind blown by these NSA guys talking about killing people, and I had to go back and reevaluate everything and start over. And the next time I had to completely start over was when I learned about the underground bunkers. And when I confronted my handler, who turned out to be a damn alien, about the underground bunkers, and then he freaked out and started telling me all this crap that started getting all religious and talking about Jews and Nazis and all this stuff. And that completely blew my buzz again, and I had to completely relearn everything. Because that was the time when I learned that these bunkers are occupied by Nazis and Zionists working side by side. And who could even think that such a thing was possible? And I completely had, once again, I had to go back and completely relearn everything because nothing made sense after that. And this is something people have to understand, and I'll just throw something out to you here real quick. Hitler didn't lose World War II. In fact, Hitler died in Argentina, and you talk about it and the United States made a treaty with Germany, and Germany is pretty much, it's not even Germany, it's the Nazis. The Nazis pretty much run everything west of the Rocky Mountains, all right? And the Zionists, the Jews, run everything east of the Rocky Mountains. And yet, even though that's their control, their sphere of control, they still work together side by side. In other words, if you look at all the underground bases west of the Rockies, then you look at all the underground bases east of the Rockies, they all connect in Colorado at Denver Airport. Isn't that interesting? It's almost like where the two sides get together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I've heard a lot of horror stories about Denver Airport. I actually heard about a guy that was working there, and he was doing wiring, and he accidentally went onto the wrong floor, and they terminated him.
Oh, yeah, they do that. It terminates you immediately. You show up some places that you're not supposed to be.
Right. So, you know, yeah, I don't, you know, just even talking about Denver Airport, I wouldn't land there if you paid me $1 million.
Yeah, it's pretty evil stuff, huh?
Yeah, you know, I can just, anytime, I've done a few shows about it, and it's just eerie. You know, and the fact that people stand in line with their children and look at all the murals and the statues, I mean, it's horrible.
Well, it's probably no worse than going to Disneyland.
Yeah, that's true. You
know, I mean, people don't realize the stuff they do to you at Disneyland. Oh my God! I mean, and Disney World's probably worse. I mean, do you realize they abduct children right there in the park, and they take them in these little. That's what the tunnels are for. They get them in these things. They disappear into an employee tunnel, and they never see them again. They're out of the park.
Wow.
It's the whole
system. Don't take them to Disneyland.
Well, the whole system's run on pedophilia. All we are is a bunch of cattle producing children for them to feed on. That's all we are.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Kevin Annett?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he's a real good friend of mine. I've interviewed him many, many times.
Well, obviously, his connection is one of the more visible cases of the children actually being abducted and probably ritually abused and eaten by the royal family. Yeah, they do that, and yet, you know, that's the thing. And so it's really insane. I mean, you think about it. You look at what's happened in the UK with the BBC and with Jimmy Savile and with Edward Heath and all these people, these very, very prominent pedophiles, and we all, you know, they find bodies at the Queen's home all the time. Oh, they dug up the bodies of some missing children in the back 40. Oh, some transient must have done that. You know, I mean, come on, nobody does anything, and yet we have a population in this country of about 200 million really stupid people, which also includes a lot of social deviants that will believe anything. And you know, I call them Bolshevists. They're pretty much Bolshevists who will kill, who are absolutely...
We're talking a lot about Pizzagate, and then all of a sudden everybody shut up about it. They can't.
Well, you know, that's the thing is... The pedophilia thing is really the main thing that I talk about because that's our major weapon to destroy them is the pedophile thing. And I was going to say, you know, the New York Times is now run by the guy that ran the BBC who was an active pedophile. The Washington Post hires a known child molester, pedophile, murderer to work for them. It's insane. Hillary Clinton, she's suffering from a disease from cannibalizing children. They're all we know they're pedophiles. Bill Clinton's a pedophile. I mean, come on. Obama's a Muslim homosexual, and the other one's Michael's a damn transgender, and the two girls are borrowed from a doctor mother and father that aren't, obviously not Obama. It's such a farce, and this is why we're having this so much ridiculous effort being put out to try to take out Trump, because he represents our best efforts to destroy them.
Yeah.
And it's insane.
Kuru disease.
Disease, yeah. You see, and this is the thing. We talk about, if you want to get metaphysical and spiritual, there's a reason why humans can't eat humans. There's a reason why we can eat animals and plants, and there's a reason why the aliens eat us. It's because it's a pecking order. You eat. It's all densities of reality, and animals and things are on a lower density than we are, just like we're on a lower density than the animals, and you're only allowed to eat from the lower densities, because otherwise it's going to completely screw with your DNA, and things happen like that.
So the aliens eat people? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, they have to, actually. Certain aliens have to eat people, yeah. There's the aliens are divided into two camps. There's STOs and the STS, service to others and service to self. The service to self aliens have to essentially eat humans, but they don't actually eat the humans. They don't take your arm and chomp on it. They actually get their nutrients out of your blood. Okay, they're essentially vampires, and again, they actually bathe in your blood. Your blood contains certain enzymes or whatever that they require, but that's only half of their nutrition. The other nutrition they require is spiritual nutrition, which isn't even physical, and they get that from us too. And it's called loosh, and it's negative human emotional psychic energy. Anytime you get mad, sad, angry, hateful, lonely, whatever, you have those bad feelings, you're generating energy that they just suck right up and live on. Very important stuff.
Are you familiar with Dr. Rebecca Carley?
No, I really don't. Ask me about these other people. This is what I do. I'm not a parrot. I ignore everybody and only talk about what I know.
She was a doctor in New York City, and they were making her do surgery on people without anesthetic. And she said that the people that were in the operating room around her, she said, I swear to God, they weren't human. I don't think she did.
They probably weren't.
And she said that they would feed off of, well, they made her amputate this guy's leg without, he had gangrene, without anesthetic. And she cut through his diameter. She said he screamed, and she said, idiots in the room were like feeding off of this man's pain.
Yeah, I believe it.
That they were part of this?
Well, this is the same thing with abortions, okay? Abortion clinics, it's the same thing, all right? And it's not so much the pain per se, but the ritual, the sacrifice. There's also energy that is associated with the life energy and the life force and the purity of that life force. In other words, it's like your soul, okay? So in other words, the soul energy of a baby is going to be extremely valuable as compared to the soul energy of your average adult, because that person is going to be tainted. They're going to be have all sorts of negative crap going on, whereas a baby will have no negative experience, will be perfectly pure, and of course this is what they relish. This is what they want, and there's nothing. And if you want to take it one step further, harvesting a baby that's unborn is as good as it gets. And this is why it's so important for these Satanists to continue to do this, because this is a major, major source of their nutrition and their strength. And I'll tell you something, this is where it gets kind of wacky, but, this is the thing, to those guys, to the enemy, they used to call me a militia leader. They thought I was a militia leader. They thought I was going to raise an army to take them out. What they didn't realize is that the army I'm raising isn't necessarily human. It's psychic, it's spirits, it's angels, it's other entities from other realms, and things like this. They all want to help. The enemies that we're fighting have been around a long time, a lot longer than humans. It's not just bad guy humans. It's the things that these bad guy humans work for, and there's many levels of that stuff. And they have their own enemies, and we're not alone in this battle. And people need to understand that is our fight against evil. It's not just little humans against Lucifer. No, it's humans and our relatives and our warriors long past and angels and everything else. It's even Jesus himself. And this, they all require our help. And the way that we do this is just by being aware, okay? Because the thing is that if we don't know about this stuff, if we know nothing about this, if it is not even part of our reality, then other entities cannot be involved and cannot even come here and be involved and help us because it's not even part of our reality. And the reality doesn't exist if we don't know about it. It's just like, does a tree make a noise if it falls in the woods and no one hears it? It's kind of the way reality works.
So not only humans and children, but they also torture animals. Do they feed off of those?
Well, the energy that's the slaughter of animals and kosher rituals, and obviously that is certainly producing energy. If you look for instance, if you look at the various religions that use blood sacrifice, anytime you see any blood sacrifice whatsoever by anybody at any time, it serves Satan. Only Satan wants that. Now, once you apply that rule, you can take that, you could look at Hebrews, you could look at Aztecs, you could look at Muslims, you could look at anybody that thinks it's okay to slice an animal's throat and say, I'm serving the God and this is an offering. Okay? That's a blood ritual, and it's destroying creation, and it's anti-creator. Anytime you're destroying creation and making a big deal out of it, it's an insult to the Creator, and that's the intention.
So what about ISIS? Everything that ISIS is doing, are they working with these aliens?
ISIS is fake. ISIS is CIA. We made ISIS. We created ISIS only a few years ago. Benghazi was so that we could create ISIS. Okay, when Obama failed to invade, to start bombing Damascus because people suddenly realized that the people in Damascus didn't deserve it, they failed, so they had to come up with ISIS. And, of course, ISIS is not just CIA, it's also Mossad in Israel. And so all of that crap is horrible, and this is another reason why they got to get rid of Donald Trump, and this is another reason why they got to get Hillary and these guys, keep them alive, because my God, it's like, for instance, people talk about, Hillary's emails. Who cares about her stupid server? It's what's on the server, and the fact that, do you realize that the Clinton Foundation has a fleet of tankers, ships, and C-130 aircraft, and a fleet of helicopters? And what do they use this for? They supposedly use it to deliver aid. Give me a break. They use it to sail into the port of Benghazi, to load up with incredible amounts of tankers of weapons, to sail right over to Turkey, to offload, to be shipped into Syria to create ISIS. And that is where ISIS came from. It was a creation of Hillary Clinton's State Department, Obama, the CIA, and Israel. And the rest of the other idiots in there like Oman, Saudi Arabia, and the rest of them. So, yeah, all these crimes, all these people getting their heads cut off, we're doing that, just like we did 9/11. And I'm so sick of these stupid Americans that think that Arabs crashed planes into buildings and made them disintegrate. You've got to be some kind of stupid to believe that. And unfortunately, there's at least 200 million people in this country that actually do believe that jet fuel melts steel beams and that planes disintegrate into nothing in fields and that they make tiny holes in the side of the Pentagon and they're able to take out the office where the accounting is done to find the, $3.4 billion that was stolen by, or trillion, I believe it was, 3.4 trillion that went missing. Come on.
Yeah.
Everyone is so stupid. It's like the damn bronze bars in Fort Knox that people think are gold. All of our gold's gone, and no one says anything. They take out the trade towers, and everyone forgets that the Federal Reserve had tons and tons and tons of gold underneath that building before it went into nothing. And where is that gold? Little things like this.
What makes me angry is when you try to wake people up about it, they get angry and yell at you and say, anyone that thinks their own country would do this to them, you're not out of your mind. You're nuts. No,
well, unfortunately, that is the problem, is that everyone is so stupid that they think that they can't understand that there's this incredible evil in the world that is not human. They can't believe that there's something out there that looks like a human that lives to destroy other humans. And unfortunately, as I tried to explain on my show last night, this is no different than if we have a gangrene finger that is going to kill us. We need to cut that finger off, and it's not because we hate that finger. It's not because we're prejudiced against that finger. It's because that finger is going to kill us if we don't remove it. And we have to do the same thing to major portions of our society that are poisoning the rest of it. And you're going to call me racist for that?
Tell us about Tesla.
What would you like to know about Tesla?
Well, the technology...
All right, well, let's just say this about Tesla real quick. We'll cut to the chase. First of all, we have free energy. We've had free energy almost for 100 years, and those bunkers underneath us underground, they don't have generators. They have free energy. Those elevators that go up and down for a mile, they don't use cables. They use magnetic fields. We have flying saucers. We've had flying saucers since the 40s. We build them ourselves. Well, actually, no, we don't know how to build them. That's what they're trying to get me over there for, to tell them how to build them, but I'm not going to do it. But I did work on flying saucer technology at my company. I actually did. But I'll say one thing, though, as far as Tesla is concerned. His technology is obviously being abused to cause these hurricanes and earthquakes. The HARP technology is certainly Tesla. We have Star Wars technology and anti-ICBM, anti-ballistic missiles technology in place right now. Like, for instance, here where I live in Los Angeles, we have a dome that covers the whole Southern California all the way out to Las Vegas, and there is no missile or anything, ICBM or airburst, that's going to penetrate that dome if they turn that thing on. So the only way we're ever going to get nuked is if we're allowed to be nuked. And this is why when people talk all this crap about Kim Jong-un, those stupid missiles, he doesn't have enough missiles. We could shoot them as fast as he could launch them. It's stupid Stone Age technology compared to what we do. We can deliver energy almost instantaneously. We don't need to fly it with rockets.
Are they going to use that technology on the United States to, they're already devastating us with the hurricane.
They're already screwing us up. Hurricane Katrina was us. We did that. We've done most of the big earthquakes. We're certainly responsible for these hurricanes. Hurricanes happen, but we are able to make them a lot worse. They're beating up the country right now. They've got to beat up the country because they are scared. They're scared of us. They know that we're going to kick them out. They know their days are numbered. They're doing everything they can to distract people. The last thing they want is all the stupid people to wake up. So they're going to throw hurricanes at them so they'll be focused on the hurricanes just like they would a baseball game or a football game. Oh, those poor people in Texas. Oh, those poor people in Florida. It's just a dog and pony show. We're in a battle. We're in a battle, and we're getting all distracted by casualties. We have to focus on the enemy, not the casualties. And it's like all the stupid people stand around, oh, look at that casualty. Oh, those poor casualties, instead of fighting.
Do you think they caused the earthquake that just happened in Mexico?
Of course.
I do too. I heard the volcano over there blew off right when the earthquake happened also.
They did the earthquake in damn Christchurch, New Zealand, and look what they did. They still haven't left New Zealand alone. Every time they have a big giant earthquake down there, there's that HARP thing right there. There's that seismic ship, right there. And you know why they destroyed New Zealand, Christchurch especially? Well, first of all, they don't like the name Christchurch. It should be obvious why they destroyed Christchurch.
Right.
But they went down there and they told New Zealand, they said, hey, we have all these billionaires that would like to purchase Tasmania and turn it into their little enclave and their getaway. And they said, no, we're not going to kick all the Tasmanians off of Tasmania and give it to you rich people so that you don't have to build a bunker and you could live on Tasmania. Screw that. And they immediately got hit with earthquakes as punishment. That's standard procedure.
Okay, you have a guest in the chat room that wants to know what your views on Planet X are.
On what? Planet X? Oh,
Planet
Nibiru?
X. Yes.
Personally, I think it's already come and gone. And I think that probably the reason, all right, this is what it is. When Planet X comes around, it comes around to pick up gold, all right, all the gold that we've been piling up for them, we give it to them. And then, remember I just mentioned all the gold being gone? Okay? That's right. Where it is. The other thing is I believe they probably dropped off some entities, and I suspect that Marduk himself has come back and is on the Earth right now and is seeking to reestablish his control over Earth. And I suspect that when Nelson Mandela allegedly died, that they held back on the funeral so that they could get all the world leaders out into this place, big tent out in the middle of nowhere, so they could all have counsel with Marduk. And that's probably what's going on. There is actually a movement, to essentially hand over Africa to the Anunnaki, and in hopes that they'll let us continue to exist in our little countries.
So our world leaders have been cutting deals with them, and this is my view on it. I think that they said, well, we'll let you experiment on so many human beings, and we'll just look the other way for you to give us technology. Am I correct?
All right. Well, the treaty that was signed with the Greys after Roswell in 1947 specified something like 200,000 humans would be able to be harvested, but that the humans were not supposed to be harmed, and they were supposed to be returned, and they weren't supposed to know that the thing happened. The other part of the deal was that the aliens would be able to build a certain number of underground bases, and that they would also provide us with technology. We would also build a certain number of underground bases for our own use, and then we would also build a certain number of underground bases for joint use between them and us. An example of that is Dulce, New Mexico, is one of the bases that is joint use, and most of these bases have lower levels that are devoted to the aliens. But the problem is that obviously everything they told us was a bunch of crap, because we were making treaties with the little gray guys, and it turns out that the gray guys are just working for the reptiles, and when we made the treaty with the little gray guys, they told us, oh, you got to make a treaty with us because the real threat that is going to be here in 50 years is these reptiles. And they tried to tell us, of course, that, this is the Greys talking, and of course everything they say is BS, but they said that Nibiru, or Planet X, if you will, was essentially a big hollow sphere, giant spaceship thing that was actually transporting several million of these 12-foot tall, 16-foot tall reptoid invaders. I heard about this stuff a long time ago, and I decided to ignore it. But they really believe this. They want us to believe this, and they would supposedly, they've been adjusting the time of the Earth. They've been screwing with our dimensions and our planet rotation to cram 300 human years into a 50-year period, that this way they could use this so that humans would work harder, they'd have a shorter, faster lifetimes, and they could produce more technology in this period of time in order for us to catch up and prepare for them. In other words, they did this so that they would have time to build bases and Star Wars weapons and scalar weapons and all this. And obviously this is a big joke. When I was involved with them, and it was during the Clinton administration, and this was the guys under the Getty that I'm talking about now, they wanted me to work on weapons to be used against aliens, and this is about the time that they had shot down Flight 800, in New York, and they asked, and I was really angry with these people because of that, and they said, look, we're not Democrats, we're not Republicans, we're not Jews, we're not Nazis, we're just humans, and we're being threatened by these aliens, and we need to all work together to defend the Earth from these aliens. So I said, all right, I'll work with you guys to try to come up with some way to defend the Earth from the aliens, but no more shooting down airplanes. That was my stipulation. And I started working on, trying to come up with methods, techniques for, killing aliens, because this is what I did back then. I was a laser pioneer. I invented stuff that was unconventional. In fact, I still have weapon systems that are based on light that don't exist today, that they have even been banned before I even completed it. As soon as they heard I was doing it, they banned it. But anyway, somewhere along the process of trying to figure out how to fight aliens, I realized that the only thing you could fight an alien with was your brain and your mental power, your mental skills, your psychic skills. It was the only thing that they didn't have that you had. And no matter what you did, anything I could invent, they already knew about. They already knew how to defeat. No matter what I did, they would have something to defeat it. And so right away you start thinking spiritual, you start thinking religion. I mean, I seriously, I thought, well, gee, what if I put holy water in bullets? What if I put Bible scripture on the side of bullets? What if I do I did all these things. The magic bullet, you're trying to kill aliens. And I finally realized, holy crap, it's a whole nother thing. I had to go in another direction, all right? So that's when I started getting into all this psychic stuff, and I started pursuing groups of people who were all New Agey people. And I got involved in all the New Age crap. And remember, I'm a real yang, black-dressing, chauvinist, gun-loving, meat-eating, manly man, if you will, and I'm going into love and light circles, okay? People, flower children and stuff like this, and that's the direction I had to go. So that had profound changes. But sometime during the process, it was on Halloween, and I knew they were going to do it because it was Halloween, and I knew damn well that they were going to do a damn satanic ritual because it was Halloween. They shot down a damn plane. They shot down Flight 990. After I told them not to do it, they went and did it. They went and did it. And that's when I severed my relationship. And I didn't have, from that point on, I didn't have anything to do with these guys anymore.
So when they shoot these planes down, the aliens, they feed off the trauma of the...
These aren't aliens shooting down the planes. These are humans. These are us.
Right. But I'm saying the aliens feed off of the tragedy, am I correct?
The aliens prefer to suck the juice out of humans in nice concentrated places like cities, like underneath Los Angeles. Obviously, they've got a big old base down there because there's 10 million people that are all running around being crazy, generating tons of this stuff. Certain cities like Chicago, Detroit, New Orleans, Los Angeles, New York, Las Vegas, they generate a lot of this energy. You look at Al Gore. Let's all pack them in these dense areas and feed them with crappy movies and crappy shit on TV that makes them want to kill each other, and we'll feed them manganese and all sorts of nasty stuff to make them crazy, and give them beer and drugs and what have you, and they'll all run around and create mayhem, and that's what they want.
Right.
So, in other words, it's like if you're trying to harvest. Think of us as cattle. If you're trying to harvest cattle, it's easier to do it if the cattle are all in a stockyard as opposed to running around the plain. That's the same reason why they like to have humans in cities.
So how do we protect ourselves, Stephen, from all this?
You become a service to others, and you reject the service to self. It's very, very simple. That's really the secret of the universe right there, is all you got to do is be 51% service to others and 49% service to self. You got to be at least 1% more service to others than you are service to self. That's the secret. That's a whole secret to the universe right there. If you could do that, you don't have to worry about anything else.
Stop hating each other. Start loving one another and help your fellow man.
You have to do things for people without expecting to be compensated. You have to get up in the morning and think, wow, what can I do today to help somebody out? How can I help somebody out today that in a new way that I haven't thought of? That's what you got to do.
And all the homeless people out there that you see that are starving, and people say, oh, don't give them money, they'll go get booze, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you feel that way, then just go buy them something to eat and take it back and give it to them.
Well, yeah, of course. But the thing is also is that you don't have to serve humans. You can serve animals. You can serve plants. It's the same thing. In fact, serving animals is even more noble than serving humans.
Yep. I agree.
Because they need it more than we do.
I agree. And,
so, this is the thing.
When we talk.
An animal can't compensate you. Isn't going to pay you back for things you do for it.
Absolutely. And they suffer too, people just don't get it. They just don't get it. And that's what I try to tell everybody all the time. You have to quit worrying about yourself and worry about humanity, the universe, the animals, the plants. Everything suffers when we have a lot of this hate energy going out.
Well,
okay, so tell us a little bit about what you think. I mean, I know they're directing these hurricanes. What do you think they're up to next to attack the United States?
Well, all right, this is the thing. I'm more concerned with what I'm doing than with what they're doing. All right. A warrior wants to know what they're doing. I mean, certainly you have to be observant, and this is one of the things I was trying to say earlier when I was talking about when you wake up. When you wake up, you need to learn to observe, and you need to not allow what you observe to affect your emotions. This is very, very important. Do not allow your emotions to be, you got to be flat emotionally. I mean, sure, you love and all that good emotions, but in other words, your emotions are being used to polarize you. So every time they do something, it's designed to polarize people, to make people hate this person or that person, and to separate us. And this is what this whole reality we're in is about. The whole yin and yang thing is this false polarization. And you gotta when you observe this activity, such as somebody going through some trauma or some current event that is troublesome, you have to observe it, record the information, and not allow it to affect you in any way whatsoever, and keep focus on your mission. It's just like you're in a trench and the guy next to you gets his head blown off. Don't even look at him. Keep peering down your sights and picking off the enemy. That's what we're here for. So when you talk about stuff like that, and this is what I tell people, this is the most important, I mean, I can tell you a lot of important things, but when I get on TV, which I haven't done anymore since I got banned from TV because I won't stop talking about pedophilia, because they're all pedophiles, but what I tell people is you got to control the dialogue. You don't talk about something that somebody put in your head because they want you to talk about that. When some BS thing happens on TV or in another city or whatever, and suddenly you start talking about it, they now control what's in your head. Don't do that. Control what's in your head, and what comes out of your mouth should be from something that's in your head and not somebody else's head. All right? In other words, we're trying to relay information. If you want to gain energy, you want to become stronger, You want to serve others. One of the greatest ways you could serve others is by sharing with them information. Now, if you're sharing crap that got shoved down your throat, some BS propaganda, that's not sharing information. Information is your own wisdom. It's like when I have people on the radio, I tell my hosts on my radio, Truth Cat Radio, I tell them, listeners don't want to hear you reading crap from the newspaper. They want to hear what you have to say. They want to know, they want your wisdom. They're there to listen to you from what you have to say. So that we all have to do that. We all have to develop our own understanding, not based on some crap that we're regurgitating and parroting from somewhere else, but stuff that we've discovered and we've learned through our own experiences and our own observations of the world and people around us, and we put all these pieces like a puzzle. It's a big-ass puzzle. The world is a puzzle, and we try to find the pieces to the puzzle, and we're never going to find all the pieces to the puzzle. You're never going to find them, but sooner or later you're going to have enough pieces put down that you're going to get a pretty good idea what the picture is, and that's what all we can do. We're never, It's like right now, as far as humans are concerned, all these things I'm saying, this is some hardcore stuff, and 99% of all the humans alive can't even comprehend this stuff, and we're not going to be able to graduate as a class, which we all have to do, until everyone else catches up and learns all this stuff. And this is why it's so important. It's not to beat the enemy. It's to wake up our brothers and sisters so that we can all wake up at once, so we can all realize who we are and what we are and how much power we have, and we can do whatever we want. And I'll tell you something. When you talk about Tesla, just real quick, I'll throw this out there for all the Tesla people. The Earth, Tesla energy there's actually a measurement of energy called a Tesla unit. It was created by the scientific engineers, whatever, the community of whatever, the guys, the scientists that get all together and decide that stuff. And this measurement of energy has to do with what they call magnetic, it's pharmamagnetic, it's not resonance, but anyway, I can't think of it right now, the exact word, I'll come to me later. But the point is that when a human body puts out this magnetic energy, it's the same thing as the Van Allen belts or the energy around the Earth. Everything, all mass puts out this energy. I hope I can think of the name. But they measure this energy in Tesla units. And the greatest source of this energy that was ever produced was when the Russians set off a hydrogen bomb. It was the most powerful hydrogen bomb ever made, and it produced something like so many, 100,000 Tesla units or something of this nature, which was still far below the actual amount of Tesla energy produced by the Earth with the Earth's magnetic field. But a human body, a human heart, and a human brain is capable of producing a massive amount of this energy on our own. Okay, something like 4,000 units, 4,000 Tesla or something like this. If enough humans could wake up and utilize this energy and get together and use it together and combine our forces and combine our intentions, we would have more power than hydrogen bombs. We could change the rotations of the Earth. We could create our own reality. We could shut down anything we want to shut down. And this is what's coming. This is what they're afraid of. This is why we're trying to wake people up, because our brains and our hearts contain ridiculous amounts of power, and we are incredibly powerful beings in this universe, and they don't want us to know that. And that's why they fill us full of aluminum and vaccines and GMOs and television and radio and all this crap to keep people stupid and to keep people from waking up and activating their pineal glands and becoming I don't want to call people gods, but we have godlike powers of creation, and it's just a matter of time before enough of us wake up. And that's one of the reasons why they're scared to death of me, because they know sooner or later, they think I can do this magic stuff right now. And, yeah, I can do magic, but the stuff they're worried about is hardcore magic. They're scared to death of what's coming.
Well, the thing is, people got to quit watching TV for one, because they keep showing 9/11 over and over and over again to keep traumatizing everyone and keep them in that low frequency, like everything's so hopeless.
Yeah, but again, you got to control the dialogue. If you're watching TV at all, you're kind of, you're not that bright. I mean, you have to stop doing that. That's like, oh, but I only watch football. Well, but I'm only taking this much cocaine. I mean, come on.
Good point. Good point. All righty, I love that one. Yeah, I only sin a little bit.
It's only 1 cc of heroin. It's not like I'm taking a full 10 cc's. It won't kill me today.
How do we save the children?
Yeah, save the children.
How do we go about saving the children?
Well, we got to keep harping on this pedophilia thing because I'll tell you, this is the thing. Like I said, I've been doing this for 5 years or however long. I've been fighting this stuff publicly for that long. But every day that we do not defeat these bastards is another day that countless numbers of children are being abducted and raped and eaten and everything else.
I had no idea that they were taking them at Disneyland.
Well, they take them everywhere. They take them from your schools. They take them from the hospital. It doesn't matter where. And then you know what happens? As soon as they take your kid, they call the police on you and they'd say, oh, you must have killed your child.
Yeah. Just like with them giving them all the shots, and then the baby goes into shock, and then they accuse the
SIDS or something like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, what'd you do wrong? What'd you do to your baby? You must have shaken it.
Yep. Yeah, I know a woman that her baby was premature born, and they agreed it wasn't big enough. It was only like 3 pounds, and they gave it like 9 shots.
Hey,
the baby died overnight, and then the father was put in prison for child abuse.
Yeah.
Quit trusting the white coat, for one.
Well, dead doctors don't lie.
It's just a big mess. It really is.
Yeah, it's satanic. It's all satanic. People think, oh, it's religion. You're being religious. You must be a pedophile. You like priests and all that crap. Well, you know what? If you can't accept that the world is run by a bunch of satanic pedophiles, you're just an idiot.
I agree. I have to agree with you totally because since I've been doing these shows for 14 years, and I have met so many people and learned so much about the truth that it's, and that's why I come out here, because I try to wake everybody up. Like, hey, we're in the matrix here, You're being run around and led around and told a bunch of lies, and you need to find out the truth.
Yeah, well, it's not an easy job, is it?
No, it's not. Every time I interview Kevin Annett, I get targeted so heavily, especially when he lashes out about the Queen.
Well, the Queen hates me. She absolutely hates me. Oh, my God. Oh, I got to tell you a story. You have no idea how much they hate me. Okay, a while back there was a solstice. Remember, there was a big solstice, and everybody was going to Stonehenge and all that, and making a big deal out of it. And at the same time this was happening, the Bilderbergers were all meeting in London. Remember that? It was a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
You remember that? Anyway, about that time, I was involved in creating some technology that was going to change the world, alter reality. And they were scared to death. We were basically going to make lightsabers and things like this, just lightsabers and tricorders and you name it, just crazy technology. And they freaked out. And they, when they had their big Bilderberger meeting, all the world leaders got together in London, they were bitching about me, which I know people go, oh, yeah, who are you? You're nobody, blah, blah. But no, they were, because I got a phone call. I always say the name of the person that called me. It probably, it doesn't really matter who. Well, let's just say, all right, she's already pissed off at me. It doesn't matter. But anyway, it was Carrie Cassidy. You know Carrie Cassidy?
Yeah.
All right, anyway. All right, Carrie Cassidy calls me up, and she says, your life is in danger. I just got out of this Bilderberger meeting, and they're really angry with you, and they want to kill you. And it's because of this technology stuff you're working on. And it wasn't just me, it was these other two guys also. But it was mostly me because I was the one that was bringing in the, the one that was really the important person. And when I heard that, first of all, I like, oh, okay, I don't care, I could care less. I'm not afraid of these guys. But she says, she had to make an excuse. And she says, well, I have to kind of cozy up with these guys because this way I can get away with stuff and they'll let me do what I do. And as long as I only put out a little bit of their crap, then they'll let me put out a lot of stuff that I want to put out. So, and this is the way it works. When you're important and big like that in the media, Alex Jones, whoever, you're anybody that's anybody, they get to you and they get you to work for them. And that's, obviously, that was the deal. But she was all afraid that, I was somebody she knew and that she freaked out because I said they wanted to kill me. Well, what I did was I summoned a bunch of spirits. And I know people are going to think this is crazy, but I have like a whole army of bodyguards behind me at all times. And this is why they can't, one of the reasons why they can't touch me, okay? Because I have a lot of friends in high places. And, people think, oh, yeah, you should feel it, whatever, okay? But the thing is we can all do this. If you want spiritual backup, you can get it. You just got to ask for it. But I'm a little more effective at it because when I ask for it, I ask, thousands of people to help me out and send me energy. And the energy they send me is in the form of guardian angels and stuff.
Right.
So yeah.
That's exactly how I protect myself, Stephen.
Yeah,
I
what do you do?
call on armies of angels, and I get prayer warriors on Facebook. I mean, like 800, 1,000 people praying for my protection.
Well, that works. People think that's a joke. No, you have no idea how powerful that is. That shut them down. They couldn't do nothing. Oh, and I know that this was true because the whole story was backed up by an NSA guy that we know personally who works in Alice Springs under the big giant thing that they have over there. The base in Australia, the NSA base in Australia is the largest of all the NSA bases, and it's responsible for monitoring all communication on Earth. And that doesn't mean just phone calls and cell phones. That means all communication. That means you talking, okay? And when it means all communication on Earth, it doesn't just mean humans talking, okay? It means all the other things too.
Is there technology up on the Tetra towers then?
On the what? Cell phone towers?
Yeah.
Well, of course. That's what it's for.
A lot of people are feeling sick and dizzy and...
Oh, my God. And yet they still use those cell phones, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, they run out and buy those cell phones, hold it up to their head, put it in their pocket, wear it on their chest, in their back pocket, right next to their groin. Yeah, that's real smart. Well, I'm going to hold a microwave oven up to my head all day.
Game is a mind control technique.
It's mind control. It's everything. It's euthanasia. It's designed to kill you. I mean, first of all, I don't use a cell phone. I don't carry a cell phone. I don't own a cell phone. I haven't owned a cell phone since 1990 something, 3 or 4 maybe, when they had those way back when I haven't used a cell phone since then. I don't have any money. That's one reason, but I wouldn't own money even if I had money. First of all, I don't need them listening to me. Second of all, I don't need myself getting irradiated all day. Screw that. I don't need them tracking my movements, and I don't need them listening and recording everything, and I don't need them watching everything through the stupid camera. I mean, my God, everybody's like, oh, yeah, spy on me. Here, let me give you my fingerprint. Oh, you want facial recognition? No problem. Here you go. Let me point my phone at my selfie. People are that stupid.
Angry is when people buy them for their children.
Oh,
like
yeah,
they're
exactly.
8 years old and they're frying their kids' brains.
Oh, my God, I go in a restaurant, I sit there and look at all the tables of people staring at their phones. It's insane. And then you wonder why it takes so long to get a seat because all these idiots are staring at their phones instead of the menu.
true. Well, I love the videos when you see them walking in the mall and they walk into the fountain or they fall into something that those elevators that come out of the sidewalk and they don't see them because they're looking at their phone and they fall into that or they walk into a
I don't like to see people getting hurt, but let's see if anybody has any questions. Do you have any callers with questions?
Sure. Hold on. I'm sure Peter wants to ask. Peter, you got any questions for Stephen tonight?
Hey, I'll be glad to. Brother, thank you for sharing what you do. I get your memos.
Hey. So, it's always better when someone has a question, but...
well, this is all part of the consciousness shift, brother. That's what I get. I like where you're going. I get where I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm well aware of all these portals. I've been unmasking this game for about the last 40 years myself. So, but the cannabis thing, I'm just going to bring it up for 2 seconds. The reason they don't let the cannabis through since 1937, the Greys made a deal with the Scumbags or Us Club, put the kibosh on it, classified it as a Schedule I, so they could do their dirty deeds, done dirt cheap with I.T. Farben and the Germans and all the other medical, industrial killers on the planet, because they don't have one good product in their black bag. And I worked in that. I was a Navy doc attached with Marines for about 8 years, so did a little time in the field, flew around a couple of helicopters, but I didn't get the programming. As a matter of fact, me and my colonel, we used to have cups of coffee, smoke a couple cigarettes, and then I talk trash and goes, Doc, why aren't you over on our side of the fence as an officer and doing what we do? And I says, you guys are all programmed. I go, you don't think for yourselves. You guys run on directives. But I'm going to come back to the cannabis for 2 seconds and share this. The reason they won't let it through, and the legalization is just another smoke screen. It's all bull crap to control, tax, and regulate. Cannabis wakes up the consciousness of the mind. And I'm not talking about smoking joints. I'm talking about doing the paste, dense food-grade nutrition, and it actually opens up the neuron pathways in the brain and wakes up everything inside the endocannabinoid system. And this is what's got them scared shitless on the cannabis realm.
Now, are you familiar with that, Stephen?
Yeah, well, sure, of course I can,
Yeah,
what was it you were saying earlier?
Cannabis isn't about, it's not about getting high, it's about getting well. Bro, I'm helping cancer patients across the planet. I love it. Big Pharma hates what I do. I've been doing radio and TV for 5 years. I took a break for this last year, but I've got tons and tons of shows. And I deal with solutions people. I love what you're talking about, and I appreciate you that you have to be aware, you have to be conscious of what's going on around you. They can't keep getting away with it then. That's how you pull the plug from their energy source.
Yep. Okay, well, thank you, Peter.
Yeah. And I just wanted to share my 2 cents. Brother, keep up the excellent work. We'll connect. I did post you in your PM box, and I'd love to do a show with you sometime. I'm in the same realm. I get what you're bringing forward, and I'd love to help out a little bit.
All right. Well,
Yeah, Peter would be great to have on. Thank you, Peter. He'd be great to have on your show, Stephen, because he's got, a lot of knowledge about how they own us through our birth certificates. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, that's not my thing, though. There's a lot of people that focus on that. I focus on, my dialogue is my dialogue. I don't, in fact, I have a host on TruthCat that is primarily deals with cannabis-related matters. But as far as the birth certificate stuff, the sovereign stuff, I don't touch that. But it does remind me of Sean David Morton a little bit, who I'm probably going to start writing letters to in jail. But I hear he only got 3 years, so thank God for that. They're going to let him out, and his wife only got 2 years.
So tell us about the Cannot Kill Club. How did you find out you're in the Cannot Kill Club?
Well, the trust fund manager for the Getty Museum was having dinner with him and my brother and this other guy, and after dinner we started having some ouzos, and cigars back at the house, and that's when he told us about that stuff. That's when he told me and my brother. He said, "Well, you're in the Can't Be Killed Club." But prior to that, during dinner, he was asking me if I would give him a demonstration of my skills. You know, they wanted to know what I could do. They're trying to, okay, well, this is what happened. I'm an identical twin, okay, and when we started figuring out what was going on, they thought my brother was me. They latched on to him. They're looking for the Neo, if you will, and they thought he was the one. And then I kind of was basically, how do you put this, briefing him about these things so that he would know what to say. Anyway, it got to the point where we all went out to dinner one night, the three of my brother and his buddy and this guy from the Getty, the guy that was running, you know, he's like, he was recruited. He was just like one of us up until, you know, a short period prior to that, but they elevated him. They pretty much put him in charge of the Getty. I mean, the trust fund manager is the guy that essentially controls the checkbook, and it's a multi-billion-dollar foundation, multi-billion-dollar foundation, so that's a very powerful position. But he was the one that told us that, but he wanted me to show him what I could do. And I told him, I said, look, I'm not going to, well, he wanted me to, he was playing some tricks, you know, and every time they do this stuff, I figure it's just a trick, but he wanted me to help Yasser Arafat. It was back when Yasser Arafat was alive, and he was saying, oh, the Palestinians, you know, they're so oppressed, you know, we got to help Yasser Arafat, yada, yada. And I'm thinking, yeah, right, you know, what are you telling me this for? You think I'm going to get involved in some political crap? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to use my skills to help out Yasser Arafat. And I told him that the stuff that we get, the skills that we get, are given to us for a reason, to use for a specific reason, a specific time, a specific place, not of our choosing. You know, in other words, God gave us these tools to use for His purposes at the time that He designated for them to be used at, and not for some stupid political crap that some human decides needs to be done.
Okay.
And then anyway, then later on after he said, well, what can you do? What can you say? I said I told him I could drive the Satan right out of you. That's all I told him. But that's easy, you know. Obviously, that's like, you know, doing an exorcism. That's anybody can do that. But then later on after that, we went back after dinner and we were hanging out, and that's when he said you guys are in the Can't Be Killed Club. And you know, I mean, obviously I knew what that was because you see, this is the thing. This happened after I discovered the underground bunker, okay? And we discovered the underground bunker with psychics. We used psychics. We had no idea it was down there until we went looking for it, and that's when we found it. And when we found it, they knew instantaneously that we had found it because that's what they are. You know, the first few floors down are nothing but psychics. Everything they do is all about psychics because they don't use guns. They're more advanced than that. Advanced humans don't use guns. We use our brains. We control other humans. That's what they're doing. The first 3 floors underground of the Getty, there's like Party Town, you know, it's kind of like Lost Island, you know, in Pinocchio, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And that's where they, you know, it's exactly what it is. If you think of Pinocchio and the Island of Lost Boys and all that, that's exactly what it is. It's like a big party.
Would you say that people that have like telepathic communication or clairvoyant or psychic ability, they have a extreme interest in them?
Yeah, of course they do. They want them all. This is what they do. All right, let's say 1 million children go missing in the United States every year, right? They don't just immediately rape and eat those children. They first figure out if any of them have any psychic skill. And if they do, they get to become, you know, Harry Potter.
Experiment.
They don't become an experiment. They go to Hogwarts, okay? They send them to Hogwarts. That's what they do. You want to call it Hogwarts. That's what it is, okay? They train them. They're constantly looking for gifted humans that they can turn into these people that work for them. They're constantly recruiting.
A lot of targeted individuals.
Targeted individuals has nothing to do with it.
I have telepathic communication. And I also know a lot of people that are clairvoyant that became targeted all of a sudden.
Well, that just, that's the thing. If you're not serving others, if you're not a service to others person, there's nothing you can do about it because you're just going to be a victim. As long as you're watching TV and being selfish and sucking up gravity and not giving gravity, then you're going to be able to be penetrated by everything that they throw at you. And the only way you can have a shield is if you devote your life to trying to find ways to help other people.
Right. Right. I had a guy examine me one time, and he said that he had taken curses off of people before. He never saw anybody without something attached to them. And he said, all I see on you is pure white light. He goes, it's amazing. But, I have learned everything that you're talking about how, I'm a service to others. I make nothing off of my shows, not 1 cent. I do this to try to help the others wake up. So I am doing this.
I'm listener supported. I don't do commercials. If I have to go on Facebook and ask people to send me bucks so that we can pay for our server and stuff like that. And people make fun of me and they say, "Oh, get a job, you bum." But you know what? I walked away from $500 million. I mean, I had employees and a company and 7-bedroom house and 4 cars and and $100,000 worth of guns and diamonds and jewelry and you name it, everything. I had a housekeeper, a wife and 6 kids. I hired people with PhDs to work for me. What can I say? And yet now people look at me like, oh, why don't you get a job? What am I going to do? Work at the Jack in the Box? I mean, come on. I mean, what am I going to do? Go back into killing people business? I could do that any time. What about?
I'm from Michigan, so they don't have Jack in the Box up here.
All right. Well, we have McDonald's. Obviously, everyone's got McDonald's, right? But, that's kind of what I mean. I'm not going to flip a burger. I can't do that. And besides, I'm almost 60 years old. People retire at this stage in their life. They usually are sitting on a house with equity and whatnot. I lost everything. I had my first home was a 1-bedroom condominium, and I paid 18.75% interest on that property. That was the Federal Reserve screwing me over. And then my first actual house I bought at right before the market burst, and when the market burst, I lost $72,000 cash, and I was paying the highest taxes and the highest house payment on my street, and I had the biggest piece of crap property on the street. How was that fair? And then when they went, I tried to renegotiate the loan, they said, oh, you make too much money. And they said, why don't you go back and alter your paperwork so it makes it look like you don't make so much money, and then we'll talk. So I did. They go, oh, you don't make enough money to qualify. We're going to foreclose. And then what do? They give it to a HUD family. They steal your home and give it to a HUD family. And people that think that compound interest is okay. I mean, I was a child when I realized that compound interest was illegal. And yet people are so stupid, they think nothing of paying $700,000 to borrow $100,000. How stupid can you be?
Now, we have a guest in the chat room that said they remember the kids' pictures on the milk boxes, and they aren't put on the milk boxes anymore, and they want to know why.
Well, you know why. Because it's an industry. It's an industry. This is the thing.
Are you familiar with McDonald's taking homeless children in?
Yeah, you know, if you're going to get into something about putting human meat in their food and all that, you know, why not?
Yeah, I saw a video where the guy was in McDonald's and there were signs on the front of the store saying, if you're homeless and you're a young child, come see the supervisor and we will find a shelter for you. And I'm hearing that these children are disappearing.
Yeah,
it's a lure.
Surprise.
You know,
all right, you know, we can get really racist really quick with this stuff, and that's a problem when you're dealing with Satanism, okay? Because certain demographics tend to be very thick in the satanic pursuits, and they've been that way for a long time, and it's been getting them driven out of lots of countries. You know, I mean, in the Middle Ages, in the feudal times, they used to have their children disappear, and there was a very famous case where one child disappeared. They actually made that kid into a saint, but what they did was they found out that he was taken by some rabbis or some shit, and they did this ritual where they stab them with a poker underneath the armpit and drain out their blood. They actually have a ritual that they use, these way that they stab them and where they stab them and how they do the whole damn thing. It's made for pain, of course. But that was a very, very famous case, and it actually was so famous that it caused the entire, you know, tribe to be driven out of most of Europe as a result of these practices. But we are finding bodies of children today with the same wounds as have been recorded since back in the Middle Ages as being done by these satanic tribes. Yeah.
So this has gone on for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's been going on since before the flood.
So you had said earlier in the show that you had a handler that was alien.
I had two handlers that were aliens.
What happened to them?
Let's see, Vince was the one that I played the trick on and made him expose the Nazi Jewish connection. They killed him. I didn't do it. They killed him. They killed him in New York. He went to New York and they gave him a heart attack. And I pretty much know that's what they did because I have associates that, you know, were familiar with the whole thing, and they agreed that that's what happened. And it was kind of sad because Vince was a nice guy. Sure, he was one of them, and sure, he was an alien and all that crap, but he was a nice guy. You know, some of these guys are not so nice, but he was a nice one. I feel sorry for him. Now, the other one was a guy named Tom Hansen, allegedly. He wasn't a real human. He wasn't a real anything. Nothing about him was real. But he was probably the highest level handler that ever tried to deal with me. He wasn't just a reptoid in a human suit. He was one of these guys that lives underground and all that crap. And one of the ways that, you know, my first clue that he wasn't human was he acted like he wasn't used to being a human. Okay, he really enjoyed certain things that humans do that you probably would have gotten used to by the time you were that old. You know, like it was all a novelty.
So how can you tell? I mean, is there a way to look at them? I mean, I do see videos.
Oh, I don't know. I can't tell. You can be psychic, you know, and figure out that way. But long story short, Tom Hansen, when I spent several months dealing with him, and he offered me a lot of money. He offered me, the first day I met him, he offered me $10 million. And I went and hired a CPA, and I started doing all this stuff. And every time I saw him, he was offering me more money, and I was, you know, making me jump through hoops and all this crap. And but the first day I met him, I realized what he was because of something he said regarding silver. He asked me what I knew about non-ferrous metal, and right away, because of my being a psychic and because I was knowing that this non-ferrous metal he was talking about was silver, and he was really talking about UFO construction, I gave him a cryptic answer, and I told him that I know that you can use non-ferrous metal for things that people don't think of. And he goes, oh, good answer, good answer. Anyway, every time I saw him, he would make some cryptic reference to non-ferrous metal. And then several months later, he was in Colorado with my mother. Okay, just to preface everything, you have to understand that he got to me through my mother, okay? He hooked up with my mother on a golf course, who was a bank manager at the time, and proceeded to woo her, who was a widow. And she introduced me to him, and that same night she introduced me to him. He's offered me $10 million. Okay, this is how he penetrated my family. But when he told me one day, I was getting a little frustrated because I wanted the money, and these guys were screwing with me hard, and they were screwing with my taxes and messing with my records and doing all these crazy things. And I finally got frustrated. I said, look, you need to put up the money right now. But before he did that, he asked me he said, I got some friends I want you to meet. One of them works for, I think it was EG&G, the other one's Raytheon or something like that. But as soon as he said that, because he's always dropping names and stuff like that, but as soon as he mentioned these two companies, all the alarms in my head went off, because I knew he was talking about Area 51, because these were Area 51 contractors, and I knew that the only reason he was even talking to me was because they had overheard me talking about how to build a damn UFO. And the fact that I was connected to Billy Meyer, and that I had been exposed to alien technology, and that I actually was scientific enough to even understand what I was getting exposed to and figure out how to engineer it, which is what I did. And they've been trying to get me out to Area 51 ever since. But when he mentioned those guys from Raytheon and EG&G, I said to him, I go, hey, this non-ferrous metal you've been asking me about, it's silver, isn't it? And he got real quiet, didn't say anything. And then he finally said, yeah. And I go, yeah, and you know a lot more about me than you've been letting on. And how do you know all these things about me and my family? How, in other words, it's like I realized that he knew all about, it's like he'd read a dossier on everyone in my family. And he knew he had way too much information that he shouldn't have had. So I asked him, I said, how do you have this information? How do you know all these things? And he said, by parabolic means. I'm thinking, parabolic means. So as soon as I heard that, I'm thinking, oh, crap. They've had satellites pointed at me. That's what it is. A parabolic dish, a parabolic lens will focus not just light, but also sound. So in other words, if you take a microphone and you put it at the focal point of a telescope, and you point that telescope at something making a noise, you will be able to pick up that noise even if it's thousands of miles away.
Right.
Just like you can see an image microscopically with a huge telescope, you can also hear a sound microscopically with a huge telescope, and that's what they were doing. They were spying on me. Because when I was talking about these UFO things, I was up in the attic of my shop. I was up in the mezzanine. There's no phones up there. There's no microphones. I knew enough not to talk around phones. But, here I was up in the attic. No cell phone, no wall phone, no landlines, and yet they still heard me. Anyway, so when he told me that, well,
Billy
this is the thing.
Meyer, he was approached by the Nordics, am I right?
Who? You're talking
Nordics?
about somebody else? I'm trying to talk about me, and you're talking about somebody else?
Well, no,
I have no idea.
I want to know your connection with Billy Meyer.
Billy Meyer, yeah. Billy Meyer dealt with the Pleiadians. This is important because the Pleiadians are service to other entities. They're the good guys. And this is really important because that's cosmic crap. But let me just finish. The thing is when the handler guy, when I called him on it and I said, I knew he was who he was, and I called him on it, he bailed. He took off. Because I told him, I said, all right, no more BS. I want $10,000 in my account tomorrow. And bear in mind, he was on a skiing trip with my mother at the time when I was having this conversation. I lived down the street from my mom. I sat there in her driveway and waited for her to come home, waited for this guy to bring her home from the airport. And I turned my back for a minute. He pulled in the driveway, dumped her out of the car, pulled the bag out of the trunk, and took off. And we never saw that guy again. And the only communication we had was a letter that he wrote to her saying that he couldn't deal with her anymore because of me. That was how afraid he was of me. And this guy was supposed to be a killer. And I'll tell you something, is I found out later on, many, many years later, through a psychic, that he was indeed a reptile and that he was actually killed shortly after that event. And I could tell you some other stuff that is even more bizarre, but you're not going to believe it if I tell you. So we'll go to the next.
Your mother was really in great danger.
Who? My mother? My mother is ignorant.
With this person.
She doesn't know nothing. You know, this is the thing with most Americans. They're dumb, okay? Even though she was dealing with something like this, and even afterwards, and I came back and I go, guess what? You were dealing with a secret agent guy who could have been an alien or some shit, and they really were dating you because they wanted to get to me to get me into bunkers and work on alien technology. You think any of that sunk into her head? It went right over her head. Normal people can't comprehend this stuff. It goes right through their ears.
Yeah. Well, so you were connected to Billy Meyer, and he's connected to the good guys, the Palladians. Are the Palladians fighting out against these reptilians?
The war going on right now in space. This war has been going on for a long time. It's like Star Wars. It's been happening for a lot longer than Earth humans have been alive. In fact, the Earth itself, as a battleground, has changed hands several times between these two sides. And the Palladians do have a presence here on Earth. I believe they are under Mount Shasta. But the warfare that we have going on in space is actually the dark side fighting against the Palladians. So when we build a Star Wars device in this country, or we develop this technology, it's not to fight the Russians. It's to fight the Palladians. Because the bad guys, the reptiles, the ones that control this Earth, are scared to death. And they've been, you know, we haven't really been involved a whole lot, okay? We've been, you know, oblivious to this stuff that's going on above our heads and below our feet. But massive amounts of underground bases have been destroyed. Whole battalions of battle fleets have been destroyed in mere seconds. You know, the entire production of whole planets that gets destroyed in space battles, it takes seconds. This stuff is going on right now around us, and we're involved.
Wow. That's really compelling. It really is. I had heard that the Palladians were here to help us, because that was my question to you is, how do you tell who's the good guys and who's the bad guys?
Because the good guys won't talk to you. The good guys don't get involved. They don't interfere. They leave you alone. They talk to Billy Meyer, but that's one human. They made an exception. They talked to him. The rest is up to us, people like you and me, to run with it and do the right thing and tell everyone else what they need to learn. And you know what they need to learn? They need to learn service to others. That's it. Nothing else matters.
Yep, and avoid anger and hate.
But anyway, the Billy Meyer thing, Billy lives in Switzerland. I've never been to Switzerland. I've never met Billy Meyer, but he had a team of people working with him. Oliver Wendell Stevens, Britton Lee Elders, and a guy named Bob Welch. And then there was another guy named, can't remember his name, sorry, Jay Dreyfus. Anyway, Jay Dreyfus worked for U.S. Armor, which is a big body armor company out here in Los Angeles. And he had worked with the NSA people because he sold them Kevlar. And they used the Kevlar for a lot of things. And so he knew who these people were, and he knew me, because remember, I was also famous for other reasons, putting lasers on guns. And, you know, I was already famous. So I was already very famous. And I went to him for some armor, and he hooked me up. And in the process of hooking me up, he turned me on to Billy Meyer. And he had been working security for Billy Meyer. Obviously, he was, you know, kind of a quasi-wannabe CIA dude, just like so many of these guys. And he was into body armor and tactics and security stuff, so they used him for that reason. And indoctrinated me into the whole UFO Billy Myers stuff so that they could recruit me to work for them. And he wanted me to help them de-engineer the technology, obviously. They wanted me to also help them disseminate the information, which was at the time VHS tapes and crap like that, which I didn't like because that was totally turned me off, that whole aspect of it. And what else do they want me to do? And help them with security. You know, I had to help, de-engineer, help them move the information, and help them with their security, and which obviously something I was qualified to do. But I'll tell you, though, I knew that was all real because even if I didn't believe in aliens and all this stuff, as soon as I got involved with Billy Meyer, my phones went crazy. People tailing me went crazy. People tailing all my friends went crazy. The surveillance levels went off the hook.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I had been under surveillance a lot, but as soon as I got hooked up to Billy Meyer, it just became insane.
Wow.
It's a good indication that it's all real.
Well, who are the men in black then?
Well, I call them phase shifters. They're the guys, they're the cavers. There's humans sometimes, maybe not, maybe reptoids that look like humans. I've had men in black, they don't get near me personally because they're afraid of me, but if you, one time I was living in this one house, before I got the big giant house, I had a laboratory in my garage, and in this laboratory I was working with fine silver, and I was consuming 20 pounds of fine silver a month doing heavy electroplating, electrodeposition process, which is a process that I developed. And they freaked out because I started doing things with quartz crystals, and I was discovering Atlantean technology, basically. And they were upset about that because basically that technology is one step away from making gold. It's alchemy. Also, it's desktop fusion, you name it. So much technology is based on that stuff. Anyway, my cousin, one of my cousins from Oregon, is a truck driver. And he showed up in town unannounced. Nobody knew he was coming. He didn't call. He didn't warn us. I hadn't seen the guy in years. There was absolutely no communication whatsoever. And he shows up in this semi-truck in front of my house and proceeds, and we're not home. The family, we're off doing something, shopping. And he proceeds to let himself into the garage and kick back in my garage and drinking a beer and just hanging out. And while he was in the garage, he said he barely sat down and started to relax when suddenly he became frozen, and he became aware of two men having entered the garage. And they looked at him and made some derogatory comment, and saying, "Oh, he's nothing. He's not a threat. It's just another one of them." Or just, I think they called him, said he was a pot smoker. I think they said, "Oh, he's just another pothead," or something like that. And they left. And as soon as they left, he was able to move, and he stood up and ran out the back door of the garage because there was like a doorway, there's a garage door and then a back door. And he ran out the back door to try to follow them and see where they went, because they either went in the backyard or they went out the gate into the front yard. He was going to run out there and see where they went. Of course, they were gone. They didn't drive away. They phased out of town, kind of like Star Trek. And about this time, I'm pulling up, in my big truck with my family and, 6 kids and what have you. And there's my cousin Mark, and he's like white as a ghost. And this is a big guy, he's not a frail dude. He's a big, veteran. And he's like white as a ghost. And you're like, what the hell happened? He's like, oh my God, he told me what happened. And he had no idea of my CIA stuff or anything, So I had to explain everything to him. And he realized, he of course he understood what it was. We realized that's what it was. It was men in black, coming in there to see what the hell he was doing. So, but this is the thing, though, is that, like I said on the other interview the other day, this is part of that Can't Be Killed Club thing. If Mark had been an assassin and if he had gone into my garage to wait for me because he was going to try to do something, those guys would have taken him out. If he was a threat to me, they would have removed him. They were there to protect me. And they were also there because in the garage was where I was doing this high-tech, crazy technology stuff, and they wanted to know who was aware of it and who was involved. You know, because that's what they do. They got to keep tabs on anybody that comes into contact with me or stuff. I mean, if you become friends with me, they're going to follow you around. That's what happens. But anyway, so that's just a story. There's my Men in Black story.
Well, you know, I heard that the Men in Black were going in doctors' offices and taking patients' folders and going in a room and shutting the door and going through the patient's files.
Well, they're very interested in your medical stuff.
So are they the bad guys or the good guys? They're the way you're making it, they're the good
there's
guys.
no such thing as good and bad, okay? All right. There's service to self and service to others.
Right.
We don't, you know, in fact, when you wake up, when you really wake up, one of the first things you have to learn is there's no such thing as good and evil. Nothing is black and white. Nothing is black and white. They're all shades of gray, just like the yin and yang. It's a spinning thing. It's black and white thing. It's always different amounts of black and white making gray. That's the world we live in. So when you say good and evil, we don't first of all, we don't judge. Saying something is evil is a judgment call. Enlightened people don't judge. We don't say, oh, you're evil. What we say is you're less than loving. Okay? And also, if your service to self and service to others...
Doing child sacrifice aren't evil. They're just less than loving.
Well, let's put it this way. They're humans, right? The ones that are doing it are humans.
Yeah.
For we wrestled not against flesh and blood, but against dark forces in high places, spiritual wickedness in high places, right?
Mm-hmm.
That means we're not here to kill our fellow humans, but we are here to forgive them and stop them from committing those evil acts. We're here to save the children, and we're here to stop them from doing that. But they are our brothers and sisters. Even those horrible, horrible people are still us. They're just like our brothers and sisters. They are fellow humans that we are never going to be able to get rid of unless we learn how to forgive them. And I'll tell you something. When you really get hardcore into this stuff and you realize what the world is really all about, you realize is that this stuff is way, way older than humans. And the actions that we need to do to save humanity and to save the world are going to involve spiritual growth that supersedes humanity. In other words, we don't just have to learn how to have unconditional love for humans, we also have to develop unconditional love for the demons. Imagine that. Do you think God hates Lucifer? No, he doesn't.
He created him.
Do you think Jesus hates Lucifer? Do you think Jesus has any negative feelings about Lucifer whatsoever?
I think that, you know, he created them and he loves them.
He loves them just like a child that's gone bad.
And it hurts him what he does.
Exactly. And we have to be the same way, or we're never going to get anywhere. Because otherwise we're doing the same thing they do. As long as we punish...
children, they do things wrong. You don't hate them. You still love them. You just don't like when they do stuff wrong.
You hate their action.
Right.
You hate that action. So that's what we have to learn how to do. We have to learn to hate the action and love the human. No matter how horrible the human is, we have to learn to love them and hate what they're doing. And when we can do that, we'll get our earth back.
Well, you know, and that is a good way to end this show.
That's why I did that.
We're coming up on the end of the show, and before we take
I'm a
off
professional.
Here, you know, you know, and me and you are on the same page. We are on the same page. And you know, my dog that I rescued, he was traumatized. He was beaten, everything. And he was ruining everything, chewing my couches and everything up. And I couldn't understand why he, you know, was doing all this. But I just took him over to the couch one day, and I said, listen, honey, I said, you don't have to wreck this couch. You don't have to chew it up. I love you no matter what you do. Even if you're bad, I still love you. And you know what? He just quit doing it. He just quit doing it. He never chewed another thing after that. So basically that's the same thing, isn't it?
Pretty much. If you want to really get into it, all of the demons and all of the negative aliens and all that stuff are creations. They're children of Lilith, Adam's first wife. And Lilith is a love story gone bad, if you can believe that.
Wow.
And all the horrible.
Have you back and tell us all this about this on another show.
Yeah,
but
well.
Before we get out of here, Stephen, why don't you tell everybody about your radio show and how they can come in and listen, and how people can follow you and keep in touch?
Well, my network is www.truthcatradio, and it's one word, truth, C-A-T, radio.com. And tune in. If you can't tune in, we just got an app for what is it, the Android. You can load it up on our webpage on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook under Truth Cats. Lots of groups. You got to join our Truth Cat group. And if you Google my name, Stephen Kelley, STEVENDKELLEY, everything will come up. All my videos, my book, which is called Cities Under the Plane, and the book's on Amazon or Kindle. You can buy it for $7, and if you don't want to pay $7, send me an email at law17gun@AOL.com, and I'll send it to you for free, because I'm not doing this for money. I could care less about money. If I wanted money, I'd be a billionaire by now, and I'd have a lot of dead people on my hands.
Well, you definitely don't want that. And, and I love you, Stephen, and I'm so proud of you for standing up and telling the truth and trying to wake people up. And you keep doing the good work, and I'll be right there to back you up, brother.
Well, hopefully we can hurry up and finish this, and I can get the heck off this rock, right?
I'm with you. I can't wait till our work's done and we're in the happy land.
Yeah, but we can do that here, though, real soon, Oh, but obviously my whole thing is Occupy the Getty. That's the big thing, hashtag Occupy the Getty, because I tell everybody we want our world back. Number one, all we got to do is occupy the Getty. That's it. All we got to do is get 1 million people or 100,000 people to walk up that hill, walk up to that entrance to that underground bunker and say, free the children. That's all we got to do. Say, free the children. We're here to free the children. And if they don't open, they got to open it up. Come on, they're going to give up. What are they going to do? Nuke us? That's where we're at right now. We're either going to win this battle.
Nuke us, we're going to go to a higher realm.
We're going to get the whole thing, or they're going to have to destroy the whole world. It's one or the other. Either they destroy the world, or we take it all. And I say we take it all.
I'm right there with you, Stephen. So
all right.
Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll keep in touch. We'll have to have you back and enlighten us and educate us some more one night.
Sounds good. All right, back to work.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show.